If I had a magic wand and I could say, John, what's the one thing you wish the reform movement would listen to you about? It's this. The American people do not trust us. I don't think they should. I think we have to earn their trust. The reason they don't trust us is not because they don't support our principles and our values. 70%, 80% support our basic values. Everyone should be able to vote in every taxpayer-funded election. The lack of trust has to do with the fact that we live in a country in which every grain of sand has been politicized. Everything is partisan. When we come to them and we say, hey, we're about changing the system, they don't say, that's great, sign me up. They say, what's your real agenda? Who are you really working for? Are you team red in disguise? Are you team blue in disguise? Are you trying to pull the wool over our eyes and use reform to get people elected that you like? They have all these questions. And you know what? My position is bring it on. That kind of lack of trust is a sign of how serious the American people take democracy reform. And we better earn their trust.
I'm going to come in with a hot question, okay? I'm going to pull any punches here. There were 6 ballot referendums in 6 different states in 2024, all of which sought to change the process of the primary election. Every single one of these failed. I'd love to get your take on what happened, what you would do differently, and where you go from here.
One of the things about open primaries is that voters are very supportive of it abstractly, meaning if they're sitting at home and you call them and you say, do you think that every voter should be able to vote? 70% will say, yeah, I think that. Voters need time to migrate from their abstract support into saying, okay, I'm not only going to vote yes on this, I'm going to tell my spouse, my children, my neighbors, and coworkers to vote yes on it. That's a journey. You and I had a first conversation 6 or 7 months ago. You said this thing that was so simple, and yet I actually felt embarrassed that I'd never thought of it before. You said, why should someone care about reforming the primary if they don't think the primaries are elections that matter? And it was like, wow, we have to change how the American people see primary voting. They don't see it as an election that ordinary people vote in. They see it as where the hardcore activists vote in. And until we change that, we're going to continue to get elected officials that are only responsive to hardcore activists, not to average Americans.
Which I think when you're like a busy person who's raising kids and putting food on the table, democracy is important, but it's kind of nerdy. And I feel like connecting the primary to real life. How does the primary impact the economy? Your job security, your kids' schools, your access to healthcare.
People have to make those connections in ways that are passionate and that are real and that are not hyperbolic.
I would just like to hear John's reflections on those kind of complicating issues that seem to be emerging right and left.
Putting together combinations of reforms in a single campaign that looks great when you're in an academic classroom and you're kind of game theorying and you're saying, oh, wow, won't this be wonderful? And you take it out into the real world and voters are like, what? So part of why I'm advocating, for example, that we should uncouple ranked choice voting and open primaries is not because one is a good policy and one is a bad policy, is that actually when you combine the two, you almost force people to be dishonest about it because it's complicated and it's hard to say what it is in a 30-second commercial, and voters are like, oh, I see.